Genwunner Syndrome. What does that mean? We've all heard this term being thrown around at some point or another. Genwunner refers to someone who loves the first generation of Pokemon. This includes anywhere from the anime, the manga, the games, the Pokemon, the region itself, the music of Gen 1, whatever it may be, as long as it's Gen 1, these people love it. And to put it simply, anything from the newer games just don't measure up to Generation 1. This term carries some negative connotations in the community. But why is that? Why is it such a bad thing to be a Gen 1er? Here's the thing, nostalgia is a very important thing. For many Gen 1ers, their first experience with Pokemon was magical. Just picture this. Imagine it's 1998. You've got your Game Boy, no internet, no guides, just you and this whole world of new creatures to explore. That first journey is unforgettable. And for some people, that experience sets the standard for everything else that came after it. It's nostalgia, which gives us a strong emotional connection to these games. For Gen 1ers, it's those classic moments like catching your first Caterpie when walking into Viridian Forest, battling Brock with that underleveled Pikachu, or maybe overleveling your Charizard and just smashing through the Elite Four. But perhaps it's catching Mewtwo in Cerulean Cave, or hearing the legendary Lavender Tower theme for the first time. It is these scenes that are ingrained into their memory. Because of this, it's easy to see why Generation 1 is the best and nothing can top it. Okay, let's give credit to where credit is due. Generation 1 did some good things, especially for a first entry into what would become one of the biggest franchises of all time. First, let's start with the Pokemon designs. You look at Charizard and Blastoise. These Pokemon are iconic. Even today, they're fan favorites, especially by Game Freak. I mean, just look at the amount of love they've shown Charizard recently. The simplicity of the designs of the 151 unique monsters play a huge role in Pokemon's success. Nothing too over the top, just solid, memorable creatures. I mean, there's a reason why Pikachu is a mascot of the franchise 25 years later. One of the biggest criticisms of Gen 1ers is with the newer Pokemon designs. You've heard the argument before, right? Pokemon are just lazy, they can't come up with new ideas. How can they go from designing something like a 7-foot dragon to just a set of keys? Yeah, I know Klefki gets a lot of heat from that, but let's be real for a second. Every generation has its weird designs. Remember Muck and Electrode? I mean, they're literally just a pile of sludge in a Pokeball with eyes. Pokemon has experimented with these designs. Some are more simple, while others are more elaborate. It's just that we tend to give the older ones a pass because, well, you guessed it, they are blinded by nostalgia. Let's move on to the gameplay. It was simple, straightforward, and easy to pick up. No EVs, IVs, abilities, or any complicated strategies. Just you, your team of 6, and a world to conquer. There's something charming about that simplicity. Another thing Gen 1ers often criticize is the introduction of new mechanics. Mega Evolutions, Z moves, Dynamaxing, and Terra Pokemon. I'll admit it, when I first saw a Dynamax Pokemon, I was like, what is this, a giant kaiju fight? It felt a bit gimmicky, but over time, these mechanics have added more strategy to the games. And now, these new mechanics keep things fresh and interesting. I mean, we can't just have the same battle system for 25 years in a row, right? If we had it like that, we'd get bored really quickly. Take Mega Evolutions for example. Some people say it's unnecessary, but a lot of the fans love the extra depth it has to the battles. Plus, how can you not love Mega Charizard X? I mean, he's literally got blue flames. So yeah, these mechanics are a bit different, but different doesn't necessarily mean bad. Sometimes it just takes some time to appreciate the change. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Every generation of Pokemon has brought something new to the table, adding to this ongoing franchise. Generation 2 included breeding and held items. Breeding allows players to create offspring with specific traits or better moves. This gives players control over a Pokemon's potential, making it possible to craft more strategic and powerful teams. The addition of held items gave Pokemon the ability to now use held items, and they activated during battle. This allows a whole other layer of strategy to the game. I mean, just look at the item roster we have. We've got Leftovers, which grants power of restoring health each and every turn. Or what about Choice Band, which allows the boosting of attack but locks the Pokemon into one move. I mean, it is these items like this that drastically change the battling dynamics forever. Let's look at Generation 3. That brought us abilities and double battles. With the introduction of double battles, this allows player to use 2 Pokemon simultaneously in a battle. This adds a whole new level of strategy as moves like Earthquake can now hit both opponents. Double battles also shines a light on moves like Helping Hand or Protect. Team synergy and coordination of moves become essential, especially in competitive play. And with abilities, this provides every Pokemon with a unique power that activates during a battle. This adds a lot more complexity to the future of battles. For example, Intimidate lowers the opponent's attack when the Pokemon enters the field, while abilities like Levitate grant immunity to ground-type moves. Overall, abilities just add another layer of decision making when building teams. It is abilities like these that make Pokemon more competitively viable. Next, let's look at Gen 4, as they added the physical special split, which was huge for competitive play, because before Gen 4, whether a move was physical or special was determined by its type. Like for example, take Hitmonchan in Generation 3. He is a fighting type, which is a physical type, but he learns all the punching moves, which were all special, so he couldn't really utilize them. After this split, each individual move was classified as either physical or special based on its characteristics, not its type. For instance, Waterfall became physical while Surf remained special. This allowed Pokemon to utilize their stats much better. The physical special split gave Pokemon a much greater range of viable moves. This makes battles more balanced and strategic. Generation 5 introduced a more narrative-driven approach, which reshaped how the future of Pokemon games would handle storylines. Generation 5 marked a shift from the simple beat the evil team to stories that focus more on character arcs, themes, and world building. This enriches the overall experience for many Pokemon players. Moving on to Generation 6, which gave us Mega Evolution and in turn set a precedent for giving older Pokemon new roles in both the casual and competitive scene. This adds much more layers of strategic depth to battles. And this introduces the idea of temporary power boosts. I mean, now, every single generation after Gen 6 has its own form of Mega Evolution. Next, we have Gen 7, which brought regional forms. Regional forms permanently changed the franchise by offering a new way to reinvent and repurpose older Pokemon, adding new layers of creativity to both design and gameplay. Regional forms showcase the idea of Pokemon as adaptable creatures. This enriched the world building and brought ongoing excitement to how the older Pokemon can evolve in these different regions. And then you also can't forget about Z moves in Generation 7. I mean, this just brings out a whole new layer of battling that was previously unattained, as Z moves provided a great boost in power to one specific Pokemon attack. Then we have Generation 8, which introduced the wild area as well as the Dynamax phenomenon, which transform how players experience the Pokemon world. It is features like these that evolves both the exploration and the battle mechanics of Pokemon. And finally, we have Generation 9, which included terrestrialization. This allows Pokemon to transform into any type it so chooses, boosting their moves based on their Terra type. This mechanic adds a new layer of strategy to battles, as players can utilize type advantages in an innovative way, which makes even familiar Pokemon feel fresh and versatile. Overall, being a Genwunner is just about loving the first Pokemon experience. And trust me, I get it. For a lot of people, nothing will ever top those games. But remember, Pokemon is a series that constantly evolves with every generation. It's all about discovering new adventures, new strategies, and new creatures. Whether you're a hardcore Gen 1 fan or just jumped on board with Scarlet and Violet, we are all a part of the same amazing community we call Pokemon.